Everything you're about to see and hear is a result of science. When Einstein changed Newton's meaning of gravity, nothing changed, only the understanding of what gravity was changed. That is the aim of this video. Evidence for the defense of gravity will be shown during the last words of gravity.
Is there anything you wish to say before I pass formal sentence upon you?
1687. Newton's Principia Mathematica evidence points to gravity as the culprit for attracting all things.
At first I thought I'd only take what I needed, what I had to have. It wasn't my fault I had to have it and I couldn't get it myself. But I knew where it was coming from, and I took it just the same.
1905 to 1915, Einstein proves Newton's theory is incorrect, proves that all elementary particles are given motion by electricity and electromagnetism.
That's when you should have given me the chair. I sunk as low as a guy could get. Yeah, but nobody did anything to me. And then I got that break with ponies like I was telling you.
Gravity is redefined as bendy space by Einstein. General relativity generalizes special relativity and Newton's law of universal gravitation, providing a unified description of gravity as a geometric property of space and time, or space-time, in particular, the curvature of space-time.
And when I got it, what did I do with it? Blow it in on a good time? No. I went out and I paid off my debt to him and to her. And I did it so I could hold my face up again. And for that, you want to kill me. Well, don't you see? You're killing me at the wrong time.
Gravity reinstated as a force by general relativity and special relativity. Instead of being a force, though, it is redefined as a consequence of mass. Gravity now works when you can weigh mass. Gravity now is claimed to work at 1 mole.
See, if you would have killed me when I was a rat, I'd have thanked you for it, but you didn't. And now that I've squared everything off, you want to kill me.
At present, physicists have 2 separate rule books explaining how nature works. There is general relativity, which accounts for gravity and all things it supposedly dominates, orbiting planets, and the dynamics of supposedly expanding universe, which is under scrutiny for not expanding. Then there is quantum mechanics, which handles the 3 other forces, electromagnetism and the 2 nuclear forces. Quantum theory is extremely adept at describing what happens when a uranium atom decays or when individual particles of light hit a solar cell.
Bring that fever back on me again. No.
The problem. Relativity and quantum mechanics are fundamentally different theories that have different formulations. It is not just a matter of scientific terminology. It is a clash of genuinely incompatible descriptions of reality. The conflict between the 2 halves of physics has been culminating for more than a century, sparked by Einstein's papers outlining relativity and introducing the quantum. But recently it has entered a new phase. 2 notable physicists staked out extreme positions in their camp, conducting experiments that could finally settle which approach is correct. No wonder gravity is confused. The case of the 2 witnesses. The following is expert testimony from the camps of gravity and electromagnetism. The prosecution witness is Simon Dan. His expert testimony is as follows.
Oh no, don't tell me he's one of these magnetic universe nuts.
Simon Dan denies a magnetic universe. Let's ask the electromagnetic universe expert. The testimony for the defense by suspicious observers, Mr. Ben Davidson, is as follows.
It was almost a decade ago when the words spoken at an American Geophysical Union meeting echoed like thunder in the minds of those with an electrical perspective. Earthquakes were described as lightning underground. A chorus of researchers seemed to hear it as a call to speak up regarding their own suspicions of that nature, even as some of the biggest names in geophysics lashed out at the idea, especially the extension that Earth's electric connection to space was a factor in these deadly geological movements. But since that time, the resistance of the old guard has been sacked by a nearly unthinkable tsunami of studies confirming indeed there is something electromagnetic happening before the biggest and most deadly earthquakes. The best scientists in the world are now on board, and then some, and real-world earthquake forecasting is underway. Electroquakes are our reality. There is no debate about it. What you are seeing now is but a fraction of the available literature on electromagnetic anomalies occurring before large earthquakes. These include ground emissions, both particle and energetic, specific ion releases from the crust, and thermal infrared anomalies have been repeatedly documented, as well as total electron content fluctuations in the atmosphere, magnetic field fluctuations, and direct detection of electric currents. These are not isolated incidents or studies. The pattern, once recognized one time, seems to be documented numerous times within just months of having new events and reviewing previous data that wasn't considered important to look at before. Nowhere does that apply more than in the connection to the ionosphere, to solar events, to the global magnetic field conditions, and to cosmic rays. The 2018 recognition of geomagnetically forced earthquakes from a team of combined Austrian and NASA scientists followed widespread recognition in Chinese, Russian, and Japanese publications. While academia works slowly, citizen scientists do not. After the Observers Collective got a publication of our own, backed by co-authors from NASA and the Ohio State Statistics Department, a location-based electric model was generated, 2 of them actually, and they run simultaneously over at QuakeWatch.net, one doing considerably better than the other. The pure space weather and global electric circuit model has identified the pre-seismic anomalies of the 7 largest earthquakes since October 2016, posting alerts for those regions before the earthquakes took place. While citizen scientists can often pave the way, and they continue to do so over at QuakeWatch.net, the road will inevitably be filled with proper vehicles. In late 2017, a few NASA scientists teamed up with some from ETH Zurich to put a definitive stamp on the merit of some of those pre-quake signals, especially the electromagnetic ones. These include the infrared emission, also called outgoing long wave, and specific electrical and magnetic field variations in the region before the large earthquakes are occurring. As physicists and mathematicians proved the data was no coincidence, China and Italy were building a satellite to find those electric anomalies. It launched earlier this year in 2018. And with the best agencies and entire nations placing their academic and financial bets on electric earthquakes, March 2018 brings another confirmation of one of the most important pieces of the puzzle, the play of Earth's magnetic field, possibly in ways that explain many of the other electromagnetic anomalies. It is concrete, confirmed, described, and almost fully understood. This brings into play yet another confirmation that space weather may aid or even trigger some of these processes. So let's review. There are now over 100 studies that corroborate only a small number of correlations and concepts: the global magnetic field, the global electric circuit and electric anomalies, the sun, cosmic rays. All are involved and can be used to predict earthquakes. It's already happening. The studies have been parlayed into not only real-world forecasting, but the top experts in the world exclaiming that this is how it is. This is how it all works. And we have China and Italy betting on it to the degree they've launched a satellite with the single purpose of looking for the energy of the electroquake before it happens. There are 2 things that you can very much take to the bank. The energy we receive from space does indeed make its way into the global electric circuit and magnetic system, and that electromagnetic anomalies precede the largest earthquakes and are indicative of a fundamental piece of the puzzle. The future is one of predictability, but also of increased risk. If we can remember that the energy from space has already begun to shift in the wrong direction, the loss of Earth's 3 shields from space means the connections will get stronger. They may already be stronger. After seeing what we expect with large earthquakes, the 8.8 in Chile, 2010 at the spike, then Japan's 9.1 at the next solar magnetic spike the next year, Sumatra's 8.6 and 8.2 straddling the total force spike of solar magnetism, once again, 8-pointer in the Solomon Islands at that spike, followed by the magnetic reversal of the sun's magnetic field, and the 8.3 in Kamchatka, all within just a few days. We've never recorded a post-reversal recovery period magnitude 8 earthquake in the data history until 2014, and we had another in 2015. Both were in Chile. There shouldn't be the energy at that time, but there was, and we've already seen the pattern kick in again with Mexico's 8.2 at the first proper positive spike of the modern cycle. There were no other 8-pointers other than those we mentioned. In a world of electric earthquakes, the over-electrification of our planet due to energy from space has only one logical and concerning implication: more, larger earthquakes. We weren't expecting big quakes during the solar polar recovery, and so far in 2018 we're already above average in the magnitude 7 and higher range. These processes are already getting worse, and with only a 5 to 7% increase in cosmic rays, we will have a significant change in the electric profile of the lithosphere. For the 300,000 plus of you who have been on this topic here, last 5 months alone have confirmed every last word. Unfortunately, we may need this just to keep up with a more dangerous planet ahead. Eyes open, no fear. Be safe, everyone.
Thank you for your testimony, Mr. Davidson. You may step down.
Oh no, don't tell me he's one of these magnetic universe nuts.
You made the biggest mistake of your
Thank you
life.
for your testimony, Dan. It is appreciated.
And what's that?
So what does that mean for the defense of gravity?
Underestimating who I am.
If earthquakes are all electrical electromagnetic, then tectonic plate movement theory is wrong. Energy moves matter. Confirmed. Gravity has no role in this process. Electromagnetism moves consonants. These are the inverse square laws of an expanding energy source. To obtain an inverse square law, you need to be able to detect an output of an energy wave. Magnetism is detectable and measurable and observable in ferro, fluid, and water. Light is detectable and measurable and observable everywhere. Sound is detectable, measurable, and audible. And what are gravity's characteristics? Nothing. They stole an inverse square law and applied it because apples and dirt didn't stick to a magnet. LIGO and Virgo announced the first direct observation of gravitational waves on February 2016. Gravitational waves had only ever been inferred. So how did you get an inverse square law? Do you have anything to say about Mr. Davidson's testimony, Mr. Einstein?
I'm sorry, my responses are limited. You must ask the right questions.
So you say that gravity is a consequence of mass.
Yes.
So instead of a force, you claimed another substance, the fabric of space.
Yes.
Now your equations, what formulation are they based upon?
My equations for general relativity and special relativity are based on Maxwell clocks, equations for electromagnetism.
But why? It's not a force.
It reacts like a force,
Like what force?
like electromagnetism.
Due to Mr. Ben Davidson's video concerning all world sciences, stating that everything is electromagnetism, could it be said that the consequence of mass could actually be electromagnetism after viewing Mr. Davidson's video?
It could, In fact, by the evidence, it is most probable. I cannot refute the evidence shown.
That is what I thought. Why did you wonder in your papers? Why did you wonder what would happen if the sun exploded, if it went nova?
If the sun went nova, there would be a plasma ejection shell which would destroy our planet.
Okay. What would happen if the sun went into a nova situation?
Planets would have melted surfaces. We would find glass, and glass beads, and melted glass.
From study, the moon and Mars is covered in melted glass and glass beads.
Yes, they do.
Now, Mr. Davidson has a catastrophe series of 20 videos showing evidence of the sun, and that reoccurring micronovas are a constant in the sun's history. Can you refute that?
This new science is correct.
So is it true that your gravity was a lie to cover the truth?
I'm sorry. My responses are
Yes,
limited.
yes. Okay. What is the outcome of an electromagnetic universe?
The outcome of finding out the universe is electrical means there must be a meeting of science and spirituality.
This is a court of science, Mr. Einstein. There is no need to bring in unsubstantiated thinking.
You talk about the spiritual nature of energy all the time, Mr. Lee.
Not today, though, Mr. Einstein. It is not needed.
Oh, but it is. You are so arrogant, Mr. Lee. Always the only one who knows, eh?
Call Geordie Rose! D-Wave representative, the quantum realm.
I introduce you to what I knew was coming from the quantum, the electromagnetic universe.
For the purpose of Mr. Einstein's words, we will call Geordie Rose and have him give his testimony about what is happening in the quantum realm.
Okay, so my previous company was D-Wave. I'll just show you a couple things. We build what are still the world's only quantum computers that you can buy. I didn't really have much to do with it, but so this is one of them. This is one of the processors. Okay, so that's just D-Wave. I did that for about 15 years. It was a lot of fun. A big science project that we turned into a commercial entity. That was a warm-up for Kindred. So Kindred is much, much, much more ambitious than D-Wave. And what Kindred is trying to do is build real AI. So what you've heard about AI is not what we mean by AI. What we mean by AI is a software system that can do literally anything that a human can do. Literally anything. And obviously, computers are better at things than people in lots of different ways. So now imagine, not only can they do everything that a human can do, but they can do everything that the best human at any task could do better than them. So what Kindred is trying to do is solve this problem. How do you build machines that are better than people at everything? Now, there's a mental block that we have here when we think about this. Because when you think about that, one of your questions might be, for example, what are the applications of this? So imagine this. Imagine for $10, let's say, I could build a machine, like a little robot that had fingers and eyes and all that, and it could do your job better than you, no matter what it is, and I could sell that to your employer for, say, $15 and make a profit, instead of having to pay you $100,000 a year. Now imagine that was true for every single job. So that's what we're talking about here, is a complete and utter transformative change that of the likes of which has never been seen before in the history of humanity, making the Industrial Revolution look like a little tiny blip on the path that humans have taken from when we emerged from the ooze a few billion years ago. We are right on the verge of that transition now. So this guy, Rich Sutton, is one of the most famous people in the academic world of AI. And like many, when asked, when will this happen, he says things like this. 25% chance within 13 years of this thing that I'm talking about. You know, when you think about what you read on the news, you know, CNN, BuzzFeed, whatever, they're all kind of the same nowadays. Think about how unimportant that thing is that you're reading if this is true. So what does this have to do with aliens? So Sam Harris, who I quite admire, is a very interesting guy, was reciting this parable at a TED Talk that he was giving, and it goes something like this. So say I'm the President of the United States. So I received this message from the heavens. So my microwave dish, my SETI dish, finally captures something. And what it says is, in 50 years, or 13 years, we're coming to your planet. You got to be ready. Now just imagine what would happen if that happened. A super intelligent alien race beamed down a message to all of us Earthlings saying, we're coming July 13th, 2030, and boy, you better be ready because the mothership is landing right on the front lawn of the White House or wherever you wanted to land on that day. The amount of resources that would be marshaled to try to figure out what to do would encompass the whole world. AI is just like that. So when this thing that I'm talking about happens, it's going to be exactly the thing that you're thinking about those super intelligent AIs. So the one thing I can tell you is they're not going to be like us. So alien means, different. These things that we're building are not going to be people. They might be really smart, they might be really good at all sorts of different things, but they're not going to be like us. They're going to be aliens. And they're going to be, I'm sorry to say, way smarter than every single person in this room in ways that we can't even comprehend. So this, of course, triggers a lot of alarm. One of the guys who talks about this is Elon, who says things like this, like, when you do this, beware, because you think, just like the guy in the stories, that when you do this, you're going to put that little guy in a pentagram, and you're going to have your holy water out, and you're going to wave it at the thing, and by God, it's going to do exactly what you say and not one thing more, but it never works out that way. So this is an attitude that some are having, this emerging alarmism about the way this is going to go. But these words, demons, doesn't capture the essence of what's happening here. I don't know if any of you are turn-of-the-century weird fiction fans, but there's this guy named H.P. Lovecraft, who's a very famous American weird fiction author. And he espoused a view which is called cosmicism. And the essence of cosmicism is cosmic indifference. So what he was saying is basically, yes, there are these massively intelligent entities out there, but they're not good, they're not evil. They just don't give a shit about you even in the slightest. The same way that you don't care about an ant is the same way they're not going to care about you. And these things that we're summoning into the world now are not demons, they're not evil, but they're more like the Lovecraftian great old ones. There are entities that are not necessarily going to be aligned with what we want. So this transition is really, really massively important for our entire species to navigate. And going back to that thing that Sam Harris was saying, nobody is paying attention. This thing is happening in the background while people bicker about politics and what's going to be in the healthcare plan in the U.S. And underneath it all is this rising tsunami that, if we're not careful, is going to wipe us all out.
Mr. Einstein, do you recognize what this is? You do have access to internet archives, correct?
Yes, I do. That is the D-Wave chip.
How is the D-Wave chip constructed?
There is, by the diagram, an electromagnetic vortex to a semicircular electrical D-wave. Which looks more like a C. It is not a D. They have just called it a D-wave so that it fits with the D-wave logo.
Because you can access the internet, do you understand or know what this picture is, Mr. Einstein?
That is your rendering of the halo wave, And instead of being an electromagnetic vortex to electrical wave, yours is an electrical vortex to an electromagnetic wave.
Do you understand why they are the inverse reflection of each other?
One is the true form of energy travel, yours, and one is a construction to promote this natural form of travel. They have had to build a machine so that they can control the quantum of what goes in and what goes out.
Okay, we're getting into the realms of deep science here, but my question, what I'm trying to ascertain here, Mr. Einstein, is that what I've drawn compared to the quantum D-wave chip, they're an exact correspondence, correct?
They cannot be denied. Without any prior knowledge, you seem to have been able to draw the quantum moment of travel, yes.
Thank you, Mr. Einstein. Now, do you understand what this picture is?
Yes, this is the quantum acoustic chip, which is used to generate and control sound waves for the transmission of energy flow, which is information.
Yes, they found they could only go a couple of micrometers to try and channel the energy, so they built this chip. What do you think about this picture?
On the right is Tesla's fluid diode. On the left is your picture of smoke travel. They appear to have the same flow, a radiation wave.
They do, because all energy travels the same, is my opinion. Now this acoustic chip that they have used to accelerate energy, which can be seen on the right there, I'm going to place one of my drawings of how I say energy travels to move. Now this is my drawing of all energy travel, which goes from an impulsion V to an Ouroboros field in the center, which, just like Tesla's fluid diode, accelerates everything moving through the middle due to the rotation of the Ouroboros field. Would you agree it is the same principle, Mr. Einstein? Due to the evidence you are showing, I would have to say that they are the same. That is because they are. Now I have a question for you relating to the video that you just made us all watch, Mr. Einstein. Do you know what this symbol is on Geordie Rose's shirt? The logo for Kindred.
The logos.
Can you explain what that is?
Of course I do. That is the sign of the Ouroboros. The Ouroboros is an ancient symbol depicting a serpent or dragon eating its own tail. Originating in ancient Egyptian iconography, the Ouroboros enters Western tradition via Greek mythology and was adopted as a symbol in Gnosticism and Hermeticism, and most notably in alchemy.
Do you know what it means, Mr. Einstein?
No, nobody has ever known. But they use it. You say that this is energy travel, where two energy leaders pass through each other and becomes the double helix halo wave. Or in the place of Kindred, they become the D wave.
Would you say by the evidence I'm showing of my own work against Kindred and D-Wave that what I am showing pertains to all energy travel concerning the Ouroboros and Tesla's fluid diode and the things that I have drawn?
Your work is undeniable. It is the same as the quantum.
Thank you, Mr. Einstein. Okay, just a few more questions, Mr. Einstein. What does E equals mc squared mean?
It means the motion is equal to the energy, which is equal to the mass.
So it doesn't mean energy can turn into matter and matter can be turned into energy then?
No. But people make me look more clever when they think that. No. Energy cannot be funneled into a box and have matter appear. That is not what the equation means.
So, your gravity can now be said to be electromagnetism by the evidence shown.
Correct.
And we cannot create a chair from energy.
Correct.
and some kind of spirit is going to inhabit an AI computer.
That appears to be what they are saying. Scary shit, eh?
Thank you for your testimony, Mr. Einstein. You may step down. Ladies and gentlemen, I am about to show you that gravitational waves and gravitational radiation are electromagnetism waves and radiation due to the formulas used, the descriptions used. They will be shown that gravity didn't do it. Electromagnetism is what attracts and repels all things. First, there are gravitational waves. Gravitational waves are supposedly disturbances in the curvature of space-time, which has never been proven, generated by accelerated masses, which has never been proven, that propagate as waves outward from the source at the speed of light, which has never been proven by gravity. Gravitational waves transport energy as gravitational radiation, which has never been proven, a form of radiant energy similar to electromagnetic radiation. That's because gravitational formulas are based upon electromagnetic radiation, because gravitation has never been proven or detected. On the 11th of February 2016, the LIGO and Virgo scientific collaboration announced it had made the first direct observation of gravitational waves. The observation was made 5 months earlier using the advanced LIGO detectors. The gravitational waves originated from a pair of merging black holes. Mr. Ben Davidson has already shown that the sun is electric and electromagnetic, and it affects the Earth because it is attached to it. So if all the universe works exactly the same on electricity and electromagnetism, then anything merging together will have two magnetic fields that will change, and anything contained within the particles within the field of magnetism will cause a ripple throughout the whole of space, due to the fact that everything is connected by electromagnetic fields. And if your detection machine is based upon the formulas of electromagnetic radiation, it's quite simple to presume that they would pick up an electromagnetic wave, because their machines are based upon the findings of electromagnetic formulation. And here is gravitational radiation. And gravitational radiation is to gravity what light is to electromagnetism, which means how do you tell them apart then? It is produced when massive bodies accelerate, which is unproven. You can accelerate any body so as to produce such radiation. Again, unproven words. But due to the feeble strength of gravity, it is entirely undetectable, except when produced by intense astrophysical sources such as supernova, collisions of black holes, which is unfounded science, it's theory. These are quite far from us. Typically they are so intense that they dwarf all possible laboratory sources of such radiation. So no experiment on gravity can be conducted upon the Earth. We have to believe, even though it's based on electromagnetism, that what we are receiving are gravitational waves, even though none have ever been discovered. Gravitational waves have a polarization pattern that causes objects to expand in one direction while contracting in the perpendicular direction. There is no evidence of this ever happening. This is part of the theory which is based upon light and magnetism. That is, they have spin too. This is because gravity waves are fluctuations in the tensorometric of space-time, which is unproven theory. As we can see by the light wave, there is an electromagnetic wave which consists of an oscillating electric field with a perpendicular oscillating magnetic field. And if on the paper we go to the bottom, we see the spin 2 polarization provides the method of detection, which of course is based on the light wave picture there. So if your machine is based on the spin 2 polarization to detect it, then you are detecting light and magnetism, electromagnetism. So anything exploding, merging in space will give out an electromagnetic wave, which is what has been detected by LIGO. You are all free to accept or deny the evidence shown. But before we do that, I would like you to look at the lies that have been told by LIGO. So here is the lie that you all missed. It says here, from earlier in the video, that gravity now works when you can weigh mass. Gravity works at 1 mole and above. It works when you can weigh mass and above. So this machine from LIGO is checking for gravitons and graviton spin. Well, gravitons are quantum, and everything below where gravity supposedly works, when you weigh mass, it's electricity and electromagnetism. So if you are detecting a graviton which is 0 mass, you are detecting electricity and electromagnetism. As we can see here in this simplified version, in theories of quantum gravity, the graviton is the hypothetical quantum of gravity, an elementary particle that mediates the force of gravity. There is no complete quantum field theory of gravitons due to an outstanding mathematical problem with renormalization and general relativity. Because general relativity doesn't deal with this. This is below gravity. It's in the electromagnetic world. So I would ask to have the LIGO evidence be dismissed, Your Honour, due to the fact that it's not working at the level of gravity. Whereas you could say, yes, it may well be 2 black holes that are merging, which is above the 1 mole, but then to say you're going to check for gravitons because gravity's too weak to detect, well, you're detecting electromagnetism. So how can it be trusted? And finally, we come to the LISA space antenna, the Laser Interferometer Space Antenna. The LISA is a European Space Agency mission designed to detect and accurately measure gravitational waves, tiny ripples in the fabric of space-time, from astronomical sources. LISA would be the first dedicated space-based gravitational wave detector. It aims to measure gravitational waves directly by using laser interferometry. Okay, let's see what laser interferometers actually detect. Interferometry is a family of techniques in which waves, usually electromagnetic waves, are superimposed, causing the phenomenon of interference in order to extract information. Interferometry is an important investigative technique in the fields of astronomy, fiber optics, engineering, meteorology, optical metrology, oceanography, seismology, spectroscopy, and its applications to chemistry, quantum mechanics, nuclear and particle physics, plasma physics, remote sensing, biomolecular interactions, surface profiling, microfluidics, mechanical stress-strain measurements, velocimetry, and optometry. But no gravity, because it picks up electromagnetic signals. Because it can't pick up gravity, because gravity doesn't exist. So ask yourself, why is it picking up electromagnetism instead of gravity? Then, of course, there's the extreme case of the Faraday effect, which is the magnetic splitting of ultra-short laser pulses in plasmas. The Faraday effect, caused by a magnetic field-induced change in the optical properties, takes place in a vast variety of systems, from a single atomic layer of graphenes to huge galaxies. Currently, it plays a pivot role in many applications, such as the manipulation of light and the probing of magnetic fields and material properties. Basically, this effect causes a polarization rotation, spin 2, of light during its propagation along the magnetic field in a medium, and we're in a magnetic field. Here, we report an extreme case of the Faraday effect, where linearly polarized ultra-short laser pulse splits in two in time into 2 circular polarized pulses of opposite-handedness during its propagation in a highly magnetized plasma. So a right-hand and a left-hand rotation, clockwise and counterclockwise, as I've always said. This offers a new degree of freedom for manipulating ultra-short and ultra-high power laser pulses. Together with technologies of ultra-strong magnetic fields, it may pave the way for novel optical devices such as magnetized plasma polarizers. In addition, it may offer a powerful means to measure strong magnetic fields in laser-produced plasmas. So if you're firing lasers in space in a magnetic field, which we're in the sun's and we'll probably be in our own, then you're going to get electromagnetic signals. So you can carry on believing in gravity if you want to, when every single machine detects electromagnetism, then you should have a think about why they keep trying to detect gravity. Nobody keeps trying to detect light to say that that's how it works, or sound, or magnetism. They just keep trying to spend billions and billions of dollars telling you about gravity, which I've just explained doesn't exist. And then you could remember that we've just spoken about the CIA releasing papers that show that the sun goes into a micronova situation. So you have to ask yourself, are you going to sit and watch Simon Dunn and his Kruger babies and listen to his gravity nonsense? Or are you going to go and watch Suspicious Observers so that you can prepare for the coming disaster? Because gravity doesn't exist. It's detecting electromagnetism. Those satellites are going up to check electromagnetic changes from the sun and from Earth. Where do you think $23 trillion went from the US Treasury? It's gone on an underground city so that all the elite can disappear with an army and then come out and kill all the people who have radiation poisoning. You'll be able to tell that by the thick bones they have, just like Neanderthals. Then they'll kill them all, take their DNA, obviously, because being outside, you'd get a bit more protection after living for between 50 and 500 years in your underground city.
And that's all I have to say about that.
Jupiter's magnetosphere is so powerful that it extends for nearly 650 million kilometers, reaching even beyond Saturn's orbit. The most energetic of the trapped electrons in its magnetosphere emit radio frequencies. In 1955, that radiation led to the discovery that Jupiter has a magnetic field. It should be noted, however, that the maverick scientist Immanuel Velikovsky predicted the electric field of Jupiter in October of 1953.
You read the Bible, Greg? Yes. Well, there's this passage I got memorized. Sort of fits this occasion. Ezekiel 25:17. The path of the righteous man is beset on all sides by the iniquities of the selfish and the tyranny of evil men. Blessed is he who in the name of charity and goodwill shepherds the weak through the valley of darkness, for he is truly his brother's keeper and the finder of lost children. And I will strike down upon thee with great vengeance and furious anger those who attempt to poison and destroy my brothers. And you will know my name is the Lord when I lay my vengeance upon thee.
14 years ago, in 1950, an amazingly unconventional thinker astounded the scientific community with a theory that challenged many of its most deeply rooted assumptions. In a persuasive bestseller, this man presented a radical view of world history that linked research and hypotheses in such diverse disciplines as astronomy, geology, comparative religion, and archaeology. A storm of protest arose from every corner of the academic world, claiming that the theory was totally wrong. This opposition soon turned into an attempt to suppress the book and discredit the man who wrote it. The man is Immanuel Velikovsky, Russian-born doctor and psychoanalyst, student of the sciences and humanities, founder and one-time editor of the Scripta Universitatis series, out of which grew the Hebrew University in Jerusalem. For the last 25 years, Dr. Velikovsky has been resident in the United States, where he has continued his studies and advanced his theories. His first book was titled Worlds in Collision, and that was followed by Ages in Chaos, Earth in Upheaval, and Oedipus and Akhenaten. Dr. Velikovsky's contention is that in the memory of man, the Earth has gone through great natural paroxysms. He's founded his theory on the ancient records of man from all over the world, on archaeological evidence in the form of ancient calendars that have become strangely obsolete, and on new and radical interpretations of information from astronomy, paleontology, paleomagnetism, and evolution. In addition, Dr. Velikovsky's theory has led him to re-examine prevailing views regarding the origins of religion, as well as those which form the basis of celestial mechanics. And he also calls for a realignment of the chronologies of ancient civilizations. Well, the result of this wide-sweeping theory, as I've said, was a flood of very harsh criticism and ridicule. The scientific community was almost unanimous in rejection of his work.
Ladies and gentlemen, these are the letters from Einstein to Velikovsky. Remarks on the part of your manuscript, poles displaced. So already Einstein and Velikovsky are talking about electromagnetic movement of the crust, just the same as Ben Davidson shows. We have now confirmed these findings. The first impression is that the generation of scholars have a bad memory. Scientists generally have little historical sense, so that each single generation knows little of the struggles and inner difficulties of the former generation. Thus it happens that many ideas at different times are repeatedly conceived anew, without the initiator knowing that these subjects had been considered already before. In this sense, I find your patience in examining the literature quite enlightening and valuable. It deserves the attentive consideration of researchers who, according to their natural mentality, live so much in the present that they are inclined to think of every idea that occurs to them or their group as new. The idea of a possible displacement of the poles as an explanation of the change of climate in any one point on the Earth's crust is a beautiful example. Even the idea of the possibility of a sliding of the rigid crust in relation to the plastic or fluid deeper strata of the Earth was already considered by Lord Kelvin and was in fact rejected. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Davidson has just re-entered the room. He says he has some significant evidence to show everyone concerning Velikovsky's letters there of the crust and the plasticity of it. Apparently, a CIA classified book by a Thomas Chan, or Chan Thomas, has been released by the CIA, and Mr. Davidson has obtained a copy that has not been doctored or had any words omitted, and he says it is imperative that this evidence be shown now. Thank you, Mr. Davidson. You may retake the stand.
Episode 21. We go back to where we began, with the classified Chan Thomas book, The Adam and Eve Story, and the postlude that has finally been revealed beyond the sanitized version the CIA did release. It not only furthers the resolve surrounding a catastrophe cycle on Earth, but it proves that the government hid support for the plasma universe and continued to try to hide it even after their release of the sanitized copy. The catastrophe cycle is a legitimate double conspiracy, both the story of our planet and the direction of modern physics away from reality. But first, we will examine the premise built on the preceding episodes as a foundation, and the foundation is simple. The disaster is coming. There are coincidences you just don't ignore. Like when a story by an Air Force major details a fossil record of magnetic reversal-driven mass death events on Earth, with the CIA and Pentagon to which he reported, saying they happened 12,000 years apart. And when an accountant surveys available literature, lining up the numbers in the exact same way, even while having to decode carbon-14 dating changes in the 90s. And when the evidence of magnetic reversals, mass extinctions, and the appearance of new species have a suspiciously similar periodicity, with carbon dating error ranges potentially being high due to ice sheet cosmic ray shielding and only half of Earth facing the sun or galactic center at any given time, taking the brunt of a burst. The patterns described by Robert Felix walk in the footsteps of Cuvier, Hibbins, and Deluc, and they seem to involve cataclysmic shifts of the planet's rotation or tilt, with inundations of the sea, and with the shift of Earth's magnetism. We have, of course, seen the rapid acceleration of Earth's changing magnetism over the last 100 years, and are about due for the next cycle event by nearly every approximation available in this realm. We have even seen an outside look at the longer and more cataclysmic million-year cycle from Dr. Rayskin that cannot escape the trinity of magnetic reversal, sea level disruption, and mass extinction. With this, we must ask a question which we will seem to answer, and then later have to reconsider. Is this a linear process when the galaxy or sun triggers the Earth's disaster, or do the changes at various scale occur in unison and harmony with linear processes added on top of them? The fact that Earth's magnetic field has already begun its shift without the great solar flash or impacting galactic superwave forces one to think that perhaps this is not linear, but that resonant, harmonious, clocked process where the interconnectedness is showing us signs on Earth before the crescendo. We'll fight that magical notion momentarily. Because now we come back to the beginning. The entire reason this collective has now begun to re-examine a catastrophe story after 5 years' leave. The CIA declassified a highly sanitized, 57-page version of the Adam and Eve story, which most of us had never heard of. We had no idea just how sanitized it was, but we could tell from the structure and foreshadowing that more was missing. It was all we had. So we began by exploring that most extreme version of the catastrophe in Chapter 1, and by seeing that the foundation of debunking that crustal displacement theory came from a bachelor's degree authored paper from a CIA-controlled department at Columbia University, and from a paper describing a historical pole position record which would debunk the crustal motion, but which had corrections to the article, some of which put the pole positions in history 180 degrees longitude away from their previous guess, and nearly that far in latitude. That correction paper was lost in the literature. The debunking paper pressed on. 57 pages of flowery detail describing a disruption to Earth's low-velocity zone plasticity due to an electromagnetic disruption that allows the crust to shift. That was all we had. And then Adrian D'Amico and Gary Long stepped up. They found, hunted down, and received the full Chan Thomas work, and it includes a postlude of incredible bounty, and which might actually explain the reason for its classification and heavy sanitization thereafter. As you might know, Adrian has been my friend for more than 20 years, and he runs a UFO, ET, cultural political threats, and conspiracy channel called Suspect Sky. He and Gary went next level hunting this down and bringing it to you. On suspectsky.com, you can find a link to a full page-by-page turning of the Adam and Eve story and the postlude performed by Gary Long. Highly recommend you check it out. Now here is what I took away from the postlude. It is hard to deny that it's all about the big event. The book describes the mammoths in detail and how the mud in which they were encased, not ice, indicated that a tsunami of frigid ice and tundra and soil was thrust upon it. We heard this from Dr. Laviolette not long ago. The strata of Earth, being another evidentiary layer, shows the homogeneity not possible without the catastrophe. There is a fascinating bit about the asteroid belt being a destroyed planet, which favors many of the ancient stories and the resonance model of the solar system. He spoke of various survivors in various regions who did not receive as bad of wind and tsunamis as other areas, and if you think about it, anywhere a petroglyph was carved is a place where they survived, at least initially. And then Gary turned the page again and my heart literally stopped. I almost fell. There it was, that name. It just so happens that Chan Thomas, like the great Anthony Peratt, is a student of Hannes Alfvén and the plasma universe. His focus on magneto-hydrodynamic power is one of the great mystery solvers in the universe, especially because our planetary low-velocity zone plasticity that is holding the crust in place is a function of it, internally, geomagnetically, and it can be disrupted. The next part is critical because Chan Thomas makes a mistake. His position is that the event is galactic, but not a superwave, the magnetic null zone crossing, called a reversal region of the galaxy, which would cause Earth's low-velocity zone to lose its plasticity and for the crust to shift, exactly as we heard in episode 1 of this series. The magnetic nulls are, in fact, what we now well understand to be called current sheets, in this case at the galactic level. The trigger we hypothesized in earlier episodes is indeed where the galactic interstellar magnetic fields change direction, and that is exactly what Chan Thomas is talking about. We have recently seen bolstered evidence of this field in all galaxies with the presence of nanodust in the interstellar medium, statically clinging to the electric field double layer like dust on a Swiffer. The national labs and NASA have begun to go plasma universe, and at the galactic scale, that means that the galactic nucleus is where a plasma current meets the electric field, which is where the galaxy is found. And if there is one thing we know from the science of magnetohydrodynamics, the stories of the ancients, and the evidence here and on the moon, it is that the sun gets involved as well. Chan Thomas misses this completely. And we revisit the linearity of the event now to challenge the magical interconnectedness that tantalized our imagination minutes ago. The current sheet is likely to be broad, but the reversal of the galactic fields to be predominant and fast in the middle of the sheet. It is magnetically null because one sheet and one hemisphere of fields flows out from the galactic center, and the other sheet and other hemispheric fields come back in, canceling the magnetism right in the middle, just like in the heliospheric current sheet in the solar system. So we would expect to enter the double layer and begin the magnetic reversal process long before the field influence switched and the sun began to rock and roll. Furthermore, it is hard to imagine a galactic event triggering the Earth, but not the sun. This could truly be a multiple event catastrophe. Chan Thomas believed the next event was imminent, like many other voices we've heard. But more importantly, his focus on Alphane and plasma universe principles is probably the explanation for its classification. Not only is this the doorway to unlimited universal energy, but understanding the planet and the power to control the people's minds about it, not to mention superweapons, anti-gravity, and anything you or the craziest person you can think of can think of. I can think of some reasons to keep it secret, and I can think of some more important things at stake right now, however, like the continuity of our species. I cannot implore you enough to go back and watch the 20-odd episodes in this series, linked below. We're not done yet either. Be safe, everyone.
How many electromagnetic papers are actually out there? Here's a parable.
There was that
EM paper.
that stood up to me.
Yeah, but we can forget about him.
Yeah, it was just
one paper. One paper.
Yeah, you're right. It's just one
paper.
Yeah, boss. They're puny.
Puny? Say, let's pretend this grain is a puny little
paper.
Did that hurt?
Nope.
Well, how about this one?
Are you kidding?
Well, how about this?
You let one
paper
stand up to us, then they all might stand up. Those puny little
EM papers
outnumber us 100 to 1. And if they ever figure that out, there goes our way of life. It's not about truth. It's about keeping those
people
in line.
As the CIA have just proven by releasing the Adam and Eve papers.
You've been living in a dream world, Neo. This is the world as it exists today.
What is the Matrix? Control. The Matrix is a computer-generated dream world, built to keep us under control in order to change a human being into this.
So far we've learnt that you've been lied to by the US government, especially squashing plasma reality and electricity and electromagnetism in space, and forcing upon every single generation this fallacy of gravity, of which they are not checking for. They are checking for electromagnetic signals. So for about 5 generations, over 100 years, they've known or thought they understood what's about to happen to this planet. And since Velikovsky brought it up back in the 50s, they've had 80 years to do their own experiments. And as Ben Davidson said, the amount of weapons that you can make is quite scary, and so a deception is coming. It could be anything, because the sun may well go into some kind of magnetic decline or increase, or there could be a rogue planet of some kind
you know, Planet X, Nibiru, all those kind of things. And I've shown with on video depending on the angle that a planet would arrive, if it came from underneath the sun and then came in front of it, like it was a dead binary star, it wouldn't be giving out any light. But you would see a pair of wings. And I've shown a pair of magnetic wings on a circular magnet when you bring it from the south upwards into a set of LEDs, i.e. the sun. Yes, you see a set of wings. And finally there would be aliens, either invasion, appearing as angels of light that are going to help us all because they come from another system, and yeah, everything's going to be great if we follow them. But that's enough about that. Okay, so I've gotten rid of the boring bit of this movie, even though it's taken this long, which is to show that they're not checking for gravity. Gravity doesn't exist, and all they're doing is checking for electromagnetism. And Ben Davison has proven that electroquakes are real, which shows that tectonic plate movement is a pile of nonsense because that's based on gravity. So, what can I show? Alright, well, there's this picture, which I've said is how the Earth is attached to the Sun. Now, I've said we're attached like that picture of the Earth with the red circle. I've said it's an electromagnetic vortex which pushes against the planet, basically like a flower. And to prove this, here's a video I made about in 2017 showing the Earth facing the Sun. So I've said that there's a flower of energy pushing against the Earth. On the far side there is a pine cone of energy as it tails away. Now that would be called, this flower shape will be called a resonance wave. So what you can see on the screen is electron resonance and an electron hologram, and right next to that is what I discovered on a magnet. So that is called magnetic resonance. It is formed by two halo waves, one away from us curling to the left and curling to the right towards us, and then one coming towards us and curling around to the left and around to the right. There's three waves here creating two rings and then a sphere of liquid. On my previous videos you will see that the magnet drags in a little bit more water, and the sphere that's created by the resonance wave from the magnet goes from a sphere to what you see there, which is an oblique spheroid, which is what the Earth shape is. Apparently it's due to centrifugal forces and gravity that it's oblique, but I've explained that the energy from the Sun is a magnetic resonance wave, and it's pushing against the Earth, and so it forms a sphere on top. The same with the electron resonance, and as you can see by the electron hologram, there's always a sphere there, because it's basically a flower, which is why all flowers look like this shape, basically, because flowers are a resonance image of a magnetic field with energy pulsing through a DNA code. Now, to obtain these images, it was very simple. I have my magnets turned onto their inertial line, so the inertial line faces up and north and south faces towards and away from us. This picture here is exactly the same as solenoid resonance, with an electrical beam through the center, through the inertial line, creating these resonance waves just the same as a solenoid. Now, you put your magnet on its inertial line so it faces upwards, then you remove the water. This is the first pattern you will see, a solenoid picture, and then as you remove the water you will see that resonance flowers appear. Now this is due to the magnet not being perfect and imperfections on the surface, but wherever there is one, there is a resonance wave. And once you remove enough water, so there's approximately 1 millimeter of water above your inertial line, you will see a resonance halo wave from magnetism. This has never been discovered before. I'm the first person to explain it. I've shown it on my trailer videos. But yes, magnets are giving out a resonance wave. I wonder what kind of information that could do for people. So, Here was my video. So what is a speaker doing? A speaker generates a sound wave using electricity and electromagnetism to make a magnet move backwards and forwards, so it generates the same wave as a magnet, as an electron, as a galaxy, as the sun. The sun is giving out a noise, and that's it splashing onto our atmosphere, which is why these sun dogs are getting bigger, because the sun is getting louder. It goes through all of nature to produce this speaker configuration, because that's how energy travels. Basically on here is showing that every atom is magnetic, the moon is magnetic. There's a list of magnetic elements. So all in all, everything is giving off a sound, and a magnet is giving off a sound. I'd like to investigate further into these very small flowers that are coming out of a magnet. Unfortunately, I don't have the equipment, but the experiment is easy to do yourself. Okay, what I'm going to do now is to take this diagram of the Earth and the Moon and create a magnetic model of the Earth and the Moon and the attachment to the Sun. And then I'm going to check all the angles to make sure we have the correct lunar orbit plane and that we're within the ecliptic plane and the Earth obliquity. I'm going to cover all of that. Then I'm going to rotate this electromagnetic model, and the Earth is going to turn clockwise so that the Sun supposedly rises in the east. And while the Earth ball magnet is moving clockwise, I will be able to show the Moon traversing around the Earth in retrograde counterclockwise, because the Moon is actually in retrograde. It's not keeping up with us, it's actually in retrograde. But because the Earth and the Moon spin like an egg together through space, the counterclockwise retroactive Moon then starts turning clockwise with the Earth, but its actual function is retroactive, and it rotates, or sorry, moves around the Earth in trajectory, always facing the Earth, counterclockwise rotation, the opposite of the Earth spin. And I can now show this with my magnetic model. Now you must understand that all magnetic fields react exactly the same, so my scales are not going to be the same size, but all my angles are going to be the same size. So here we see I have our top connection from the Sun, the large magnet, and the bottom large magnet are the north and south pole connections to the Sun. This is a wonderful picture from NASA showing the north connection and the south connection of the solar wind. So what I am showing is correct in electromagnetic terms.
This is my construction of the planet Earth, the orbital of the Moon, and I have two magnets either side. These would be the connections from the Sun. Now, I've already shown that this angle corresponds to gravity and the orbits of the Moon. So right now this is correct. Now I want you to see something. I've put a dot here. That's just a chip, but it doesn't matter. Either one's good. And you see that? There's a dot there. Don't know if you can see it. On the Earth. I'm going to rotate this so that the Earth turns counterclockwise, so that the Earth rolls from west to east, so that the Sun rises in the east. What's going to happen to the Moon? Now remember, I'm only just rotating this like this, but the whole thing will be rotating counterclockwise so that the Sun comes up in the east. Now we all know the Moon doesn't keep up with the Earth. What if I told you it was going backwards? So while I'm doing this, the Earth ball is travelling counterclockwise. Oh, it's very difficult. But the Moon is travelling clockwise. But if we then rotate the whole Earth like that, we now have a counterclockwise Moon that's spinning backwards, which looks like it's not keeping up with the Earth, when in fact magnetism shows the Earth to go that way and the Moon to go that way, but with both going that way, they both look like they're going clockwise, counterclockwise, sorry, with a Moon that is slowly travelling backwards, because it is, just like that. Centre ball is travelling counterclockwise, my moon dot is travelling clockwise.
And so because of one of my trailers, my trailer is now easy to understand, as all moon rotations and such like have been presented without any narration. So the whole point of this trailer was to show that there are the angles within the lunar orbit plane. We are north to south with the Earth, and the rotation of it creates the retroactive movement of the Moon. And what you can see there's a little counter going, and the Moon going around the Earth. I've had to shrink it down so we can see it, but it shows about a 10-year cycle of the Moon around the Earth. And as we can see, my angles might be a degree off, but then so might science. So this basically shows the Moon orbit being recreated by magnetism. Now though, let's focus on this. Do you see the shape of the rotation? It is actually forming a heart shape. And that of course leads to the next part of this video, which is all about the heart movement, the double helix halo wave movement of planets. And so that is why the Moon has an elliptical orbit, not because gravity is doing anything, because the Moon's actually moving away from the Earth every year. So how can that be gravity if things are supposed to attract each other? Okay, so this is the halo wave I constructed, which is constructed from two Fibonacci spirals that I have linked together in the center. Now energy comes out and spills around to the left and around to the right. The one on the right is traveling clockwise, and so it moves anything in that line upwards to the top. When it meets the crossover point, the other wave is traveling in the other direction. So instead of being pulled into the center, it hops the connection at the top and then carries on and is pushed. And then when it comes round to the bottom, it then grabs hold of the other end of the halo wave and is pulled. And that is why it's a heart-shaped Moon orbit, and it's also why the 5 petals of Venus are the 5 petals of Venus, because it's a bunch of halo waves. And so the spin of Venus as it moves around with the Sun is comparable to what I've drawn. Incidentally, what I've drawn on screen there on the right, this was actually to show how an electromagnetic field propagates down a wire, because each one of these connects into the next halo wave. So I've successfully shown a magnetic model and all angles and all travel of the Moon in retrograde always facing the Earth. I have shown my proof with actual physical science. What has gravity shown us? They showed us this, and this is their strongest evidence. This is their evidence. Nothing else. This child's picture is their evidence. Thank you very much. My name is Lee, and this has been a science video. Okay, now that that's all done, I can now talk about where I got all this information. I received all this information in visions in 2014 for 3 weeks, day and night, and it never stopped. And I've accumulated approximately 4 terabytes of information of everything that I've seen and put down as reference material. I've said that energy and matter are separate, and that energy moves matter. Matter cannot move itself because matter is dead and merely for lighting up objects and giving off a signal so that we can see it. I was blind, I was deaf, I was dumb, and then God arrived and I came back to life. And with that came wisdom and instruction from God, showing that all energy travels in a Fibonacci spiral, increasing or decreasing energy flow, and that all energy is electromagnetic, and it comes out of the center, spills out to one side, and spins around to the other side like an umbrella. I have said all these things over the last 5 years, and so I made this video to show that there's a lot of people out there who are promoting this, promoting false science. They believe that the end is coming, and it is, but all of this is written down in Revelation in the Bible, and destruction is going to come upon the earth. So you can believe that it's just a science thing, and that the earth just gets destroyed every couple of thousand years, and we can all go back into our caves and then come out and rebuild civilization. You can believe that that is all there is if you want to just believe in science. I know there's a God. My belief is not based on faith anymore due to the things that I've seen, which is pretty much everything in the universe being made, and the amount of things that I've not said yet are only due to the fact that nobody's asked me the right questions to hear more. All energy goes from a vortex to a wave, as we see on screen by Smarter every day, and then every time there is a mixture and an expulsion, it is an Ouroboros field, an Ouroboros sphere, as seen. Thank you very much. My name is Lee. I follow the Christ, and everything that I have seen has turned out to be true. Thanks very much. I pray that God goes with you. You can believe in God. I am not a liar. I have seen things that no man has. And you may sit there and say, well, you know, Lee, you might just be a clever bloke. No, none of this is mine. From the very beginning I said that none of this is mine. God gave it all to me and then set me free to go look in the world to find everything that I'd seen. Found pretty much most of it and put it on video for 5 years. You either believe me or you do not. I pray you do, as the end is coming. Thanks a lot. Bye.